That was zen. That was nice. Um, Welcome to the 11th movie night extravaganza takeover of the This Is Revolution podcast. I, of course, am Forrest Miller, your host, the host of Movie Night Extravaganza. We are finally monetized. This is the first monetized episode on the Movie Night Extravaganza channel. So if you're watching it on This Is Revolution, you could switch over there and you could, throw us a little bit of super chat money, just a little bit of that coin. So tonight we're going to be talking about the Billy Friedkin movie, The French Connection, which starred Gene Hackman as NYP vice cop Jimmy Popeye Doyle. It was based on a best-selling book that chronicled the largest drug bust in American history. It won 5 Oscars, including Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Editing, Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Gene Hackman. It's been said that it was the first major new Hollywood success story after the fall of the studio system. Now, before I bring in my panelists for this evening, I would like to remind you to like and subscribe both to This Is Revolution and my show. Let's get this on the road. We have J. Andrew World.
Fully compressed and ready to go. And I do want to just say real quickly, if you can, please help the people out in Appalachia right now. The flooding's really bad out there, and they really need your help.
Okay. And we have Conan Neutron, Protonic Reversal, host, and, Conan Neutron, the Secret Friends frontman, and action chief, just the solos. Now,
yes, y'all. Indeed. How you goes, gentlemen? I'm surprised Andy's getting the first introduction, because I've actually guest hosted this show more than Andy has. Dun dun dun.
True that.
Yeah.
Ignoble, but I'll take it. Credit's what matters. I'll take credit.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm excited to talk about this movie. It's Gene Hackman playing the classic role of a utterly deplorable, detestable human being, aka a cop, and also has one of the best and coolest and craziest chase scenes where a car is chasing a guy in a subway, and I've seen this before. I swear to you, I thought the movie was like 2/3 that. Like, that's how big of an impression it made to me as a younger man. So there you go.
Yeah, and it's funny that it got Best Adapted Screenplay, because the dialogue is really not that important in this movie, really.
The dialogue's almost completely irrelevant, yeah.
I think Billy Friedkin didn't even read the book before directing it. But, of course, also, Christina Oakes, we should bring her out. Yeah.
I wouldn't wait. She's amazing.
Hey.
I'm kind of completely.
That's her intro. Oh yeah, it's Christina. We forgot to bring her in.
No, she. Sorry, I'm like really thrown off by not doing the trailer first.
That's like remember in Gilligan's Island, where like the professor and the rest or whatever it was, where
Yes.
they had like cut off like 5 seconds, and then like the rest, like what?
And then they finally were like, once it got colorized, they're like the professor and Marianne. Like that was the rest. Like that was it.
Yeah, it's like you couldn't fit in
Marianne
those
in
extra
this situation.
syllables. Well, I always think of you as my Marianne for this show. Yes.
Christina, of course, hosts I'm Christina on Twitch and on Patreon. You know, subscribe to her Patreon, patronize it. Don't patronize her, but patronize the Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of had to like flow through the intro though, because like I don't know, I felt like I was having a panic attack for a second without the without the trailer in the beginning. I don't know why. I
Watch
need
the
that
trailer
time.
before the stream.
But I'm saying I need that time to like ready myself. I think that Zen 30 seconds kind of helped though. But
You want to start over? We can just start over. That's fine.
We are here to talk about the French Connection. Yeah, so I can't even remember who suggested this. I think I just kind of came up with it randomly, and I was like, the French Connection. That's a movie I've always wanted to see.
Yeah. Why are there so many movies about French people?
Well, so I think I couldn't remember what it was, and then watching it, I remembered what it was. My grandma used to mention the French Connection, and I think it was the "you pick your feet in Poughkeepsie" line that that she used to reverence, because of course Poughkeepsie is 2 towns over for me. I made it, 6 minutes without saying that, without referencing Poughkeepsie, but that's better than I thought I would do.
You thought you'd start off like, this is Poughkeepsie Revolution. Picking your feet here is Forrest Miller.
I am here to pick my feet, not in Poughkeepsie tonight, in New Paltz, but I got a root canal last week in Poughkeepsie, so they picked my teeth in Poughkeepsie. Been waiting to do that line for a whole week now.
Oh boy! All right,
right away, bringing in. That's all I got. All right.
all right.
No, so this is a real life story of NYPD cops who did the biggest drug bust of all time. And I didn't actually know that this was based on a true story. I don't know why I didn't know that, but I think it still hasn't been beat.
Yeah, it was a big one. I mean, it's and what's notable for this as a film, and I know far less about the actual historical event, but what's notable for it as a film is that it's kind of a minor miracle, right? Because this dude has the worst instincts, is wrong about almost everything, is a total piece of crap the entire time, and then just almost stumbles into the things that lead him to solving the case, and then the whatever everything that goes after that. And it's kind of amazing because the 70s were the only time that you could do that, have a protagonist that kind of sucks, and isn't very good at their job, but is still the protagonist, and you get a best actor. And I feel now especially everything is unfortunately just every character has to be a stand-in for the audience member somehow, in some dumb morality tale or something along those lines, of which this is definitely not, because this guy is going around first of all, every black person in the city is getting hassled by him and or shook down. So we can just start with that's what it seems to be for a kid.
Was a thing in the 70s.
And they're not even the real targets of any of these. They're just people that,
he's just something to do, is what it seems like he's doing it for. It's I don't know what I'm gonna do tonight. Yeah, let's go freaking shake some people down. Oh, great. Yeah, sounds good. But classic filmmaking in the fact that I don't feel like Friedkin is being hey, look at this cool guy doing cool guy stuff at all. But it's a very unsympathetic portrait of the police.
No, but one of
the boss, Simonson, is played by the actual cop that the story is based on, the guy that wrote the book. Eddie Egan is his name, and he plays Simonson, who's the guy that as Gene Hackman's walking out, he's like, "Hey, Popeye, you ever pick your feet in Poughkeepsie or something?" And he throws that line at him. That's the actual cop from the drug bust that is the big piece of shit.
Oh, no kidding? Okay, cool. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
And a lot of the people they didn't use any big actors at the time. We think of Gene Hackman as one of the greatest actors of all time, obviously. Everything he's really in. And this movie was kind of the first time most of America got to see him. Not the first movie he was in. He was in movies in the 60s and stuff. But it is the first movie that he ever that he won an Oscar for. It's the first movie that he had a major portrayal in as like the main character. He was in one movie beforehand, and it was the opposite of this movie pretty much. I forget the name of it, but they were all like,
he was also the number one pick to play the dad of the Brady Bunch.
Wow. Okay.
Imagine that universe.
Which is kind of funny because Peter Boyle was the first choice to play him, like Popeye Doyle, in this, because he was in that movie Joe.
Peter Boyle's great.
Like, I don't want to play racist pieces of shit anymore. I want to play like a romantic comedy lead or something.
Yeah.
or Frankenstein's monster.
Yeah. Well, there's a clip that I'm going to play in the after party, because I don't want to play clips in this part of it. There's a clip that I'm going to play in the after party where Billy Friedkin basically says, like, he saw himself as like Cary Grant or something, and Mel Brooks saw him as Frankenstein's monster.
Good. Interesting.
That's good. Like a lot of people, I feel like that same criteria applies for a lot of people these days too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when's the first time you guys saw this movie?
I saw it as a kid. I'll just start it off. I saw it like when I was like 12 or something. And like I said, the only thing that stuck with me is the incredible car chase, which, to be fair, kicks ass. But yeah, I didn't, and I remember that it's something vaguely to do with drugs, and that Gene Hackman was kind of annoying and like lame as a character, and I didn't like him, but I liked his performance. I mean, annoying in the fact that the character is annoying, not that like he did a poor job of being a fantastic job of being a total dick.
No,
but yeah, I was pretty young.
The character, like, what a narc.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you, Andy?
I actually didn't see it until like about a little over a decade ago. I remember I watched it with my wife on like TBS with commercials, and those commercials kill it because I think this is a slow paced
or TCM. TBS is the one that does like
it's the Beastmaster station.
It was TNT. I don't remember. It was like one of those basic cable channels where they showed commercials during the movie. And this movie is except for that chase scene, it's a pretty long movie. I always feel like and putting in commercials just completely ruins what little pacing it has. It's
yeah, that had to feel like it's like 3 hours or something. With all
oh my god, I feel like I'm still watching it. It's like like my own personal with that driving movie you watched this year that you're still watching.
Drive My Car. You mean Drive My Car, Andy? I know it's a difficult title, but yeah. The one where they're driving the car. What's that called? Drive My Car? Oh yeah, that one.
Yeah, so the car chase was done impromptu during live traffic. They did not get permits for anything that they did in this movie.
That's amazing.
It was the 70s after all.
Because it basically looks like Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah. No, and
like the video game.
That's my favorite scene in the entire movie, where he runs up to the car, and he's like and he's just like, "Hey, give me your car, I'm a cop." And the guy's just "Oh, okay, when am I getting it back?" And he's like, doesn't answer him, drives off, and then fucking
almost hits 3 people on the sidewalk too.
It's amazing.
Completely fucking insane.
If it was me and it was my car, I would simply say no. So how about you, Christina? When did you first see this thing?
I believe I was in high school. I found it rather interesting, and again, I liked the car chase scene. But like, I was very interested in the fact how different this movie was, because right before I was watching a lot of films that were like from like the 60s that weren't considered like gritty like this one. So you could tell this is like a new era in Hollywood. So I was fascinated, like Hello Dolly came out like 2 years earlier. So I'm like, what? There was like a major shift in filmmaking at the time. So I always found like films from like the early 70s and how much different things became like after like the late 60s.
Yeah, well, the studio system collapsed, and that's why so many like people like Coppola can make movies, right after this, or Scorsese, or any of those like grittier new Hollywood directors that we all appreciate as kind of the best of the best, right? They're all students of film. They were all allowed to make movies just because the studio system, which might not have allowed them to literally do the most insane shit you could possibly think of for an entire decade, collapsed.
The Exorcist.
Yeah, which is another Billy Friedkin.
I mean, it's another freaking movie. Yeah.
Yep.
He's a freaking. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I like The Exorcist quite a bit. I like Sorcerer quite a bit too, but I think I am the guy who like Wages of Fear more than Sorcerer. But Sorcerer is quite good. It's a very good film.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this kind of launched his career. This launched Gene Hackman's career. I don't even know where like Hollywood would be without, I mean, some of the biggest movies of all time, obviously from Billy Friedkin, and he's been interviewed a lot in the last few years, and taking everyone through his filmmaking process and stuff, which he was the first one of those really like, that wasn't protected by the studio system. One of the first like tough directors that really put his actors through hell. I mean, Kubrick kind of existed at the same time, but he wasn't making films in America.
Yeah, I mean, he's not shy. He's a pretty funny interview. He has thoughts about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, especially a movie that you don't like.
Anyway, moving on.
That guy came in with the full fucking confidence, and he like knocked that movie down to the 2011 Oscar winner into whatever. He's like, it's not 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like, it's not a movie that we're going to be talking about in 30 years. Calm the fuck down.
Which I agree with that assessment. I do think it's funny that like there's two things. First of all, I envied his immediate response as an artist and the fact that you could just like to have like that level of not caring at all about repercussions of what you're about to say professionally. And then additionally, as an interviewer, I felt really bad for the person interviewing. It was like, oh man. And then like wrong move to recover where it's like, but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, does everyone know what we're talking about? I feel like we're being more esoteric than normal, but
yeah,
I think I missed that because my basement's flooding. So
it's Bill Friedkin kind of going off. He's like going off about certain modern filmmakers and characterized as like modern classics by the interviewer that he.
Well, he's the guy that directed the movie. He's the guy that directed it. He went off to the director.
Is it the guy that directed it? Really? Yeah. Oh wow, it's even funnier.
I don't know why the name of the movie is slipping me right now.
Awkward.
Well, because the guy comes in and he says something like, the guy comes in and he's like, well, I made a modern classic and I'm kind of like you. And throughout the entire interview, it's an hour and a half long. He keeps referencing like, oh, I'm a modern version of you. I'm a modern version of you. And like, so he has like this confidence building up to it. And he's like, dude, your movie came out like a few years ago. Like, it has not been enough time for you to say like, I'm on the same level as someone like Kubrick or somebody like me. Yeah. They were like, is this movie going to withstand the test of time? Probably not. Like,
oh wow. In that case, I feel even worse if it was that guy's movie, because that's like, first of all, just don't do that. Like, don't challenge someone to be in a position to have to like verify a positive opinion about your own work. That's just, I don't know. That's crass. I feel like that's just a bush league.
Hey guys, how do you think what do you think? How do you think I'm doing?
Like, yeah. Hey, another thing I did. How you guys like that? Come on, it's too thirsty. Like, fuck out of here.
I got an Oscar. I got an Oscar for my film. Yeah. Well, it's one of those
it's like bring out the Oscar. Like, oh, this thing.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, how did that get there? I usually have that in the closet. All right, whatever. Yeah, cool.
Well, it's one of those.
I don't have a room for my awards.
But it's like one of those like, hey, like directors in conversation with directors. So it's not just like interviewing him about his life, but at the same time, like, no, you don't do that. The only people that can kind of get away with doing stuff like that is like when they have Scorsese and like Coppola in the same place because they've been friends for so long, and they just like heap praise on each other's work. But you don't do that with someone you barely know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your work is great. What about me? Let's talk about me.
That makes me wonder about that guy, but anyway, whatever. Friedkin's generally good. I mean, Friedkin's always good and occasionally really great and like pretty thoughtful, and like he's definitely like a dude that it's good that he came up making films and like sort of like around the same time as filmmaking got more adventurous, but also really rewarded the long form, because I don't feel like he would do as well in like a modern context.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're back to this kind of studio system, right? Like, it's kind of back to the point where we have to get financing through. I mean, obviously, there's stuff like Mumblecore where people are just kind of financing the movies themselves. But like, if you want professional backing, we're not in the 90s or the 70s anymore. And this is kind of one of the first movies that proved that the 70s were going to be a decade of movies like this.
Yeah. Absolutely, and lo and behold, they were. What a true success story. But yeah, I mean, like, so I'm curious about. I mean, I guess if you think about it, like, there's aspects about like this story that are like pretty fascinating. Uh, but like, and the idea, like, it may seem somewhat more tame by today's standards, but this is like 71, right? So the idea of like, oh, they, by the way, spoiler alert for a movie that's like significantly older than I am, but like when they're hiding the drugs in like the chassis of the car, right? Like it's sort of like, well, it'd be like, oh, well, duh, like why didn't you just look in the car? And it was like, that was revolutionary at the time. Like from like, oh my god, they hid it in the chassis of the car. Like you get to do that once, and then like everybody knows about it, and then like they're gonna check the car. It's like, I'll characterize it as like, it used to be that like, well, when there was more free flowing traffic from United States to Canada for bands, you have to pay a tax on your merchandise when you go into Canada. And so the move would be like, if you had one of those big Ampeg 8x10 fridges, is you would unscrew the back and you put all your merch inside this gigantic 8x10 cabinet. But then somebody talked about that, and like it became known, and that became a thing they couldn't do anymore. But like for the band that got away with it, you know, where you get to like go through with all this untaxed merchandise, which is like hundreds of dollars if you're like a bigger band, right? Like it's like a pretty big amount of money. And you pay it and you don't get it back when you return to the US. That's the key factor. That's just like your donation to the Justin Trudeau, rehabilitation fund or whatever.
The Pierre Trudeau.
So, but you get to do that once, right? Like, so like when it gets known that like, oh, hey, like whoever, somebody talked or put in a tour diary or something that we did this to get around that. And then of course, they got nothing to do all day at the border, but to sit there and be like, these check out what these guys did, eh? Oh yeah, we got to make sure to unscrew that next time they come through, like whatever.
When we're off air, I have a story about how we got magazines into Canada without being taxed, but that's another story.
If it involves your cornhole, I don't want to hear it, buddy.
Up my ass.
Oh, Kiwi was a good comment.
10 years. Your father put the magazine in. And also this is like it's high profile enough. I mean, it happened for 25 years. This is how they got heroin into New York City from France. So the French Connection really did. I mean, you don't really touch on that in the movie, but like this is it was an ongoing trafficking way, and I'm assuming they did it the same way pretty much every time for 25 years as like a regular thing. Oh, the other director was talking about Drive, and I thought it was Drive, but then we were talking about Drive My Car, and it threw me off before.
It's definitely Drive. I just thought you were being cagey about not mentioning
it. Yeah, Nicholas Winding.
I thought that was a very cool looking movie, and by no stretch of the imagination should that ever be somebody's number one movie of that year. But whatever. Like, I'm built different, I guess.
Speaking of like driving in cars, I feel like the car chase scene is actually one of the more influential aspects of the film. Because I feel like without that scene specifically, there would be no Fast and Furious. There wouldn't be no like that car scene from like the other guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. I immediately was thinking of like the French Connection, especially with that. Like, It's that if you want a good car chasing scene, you need to look back at this film for inspiration.
Yeah,
like it's like that and Bullet.
Like
I feel like
Ronin. Yeah. I think Ronin took this one and Bullet and combined the two in a beautiful way by the director of French Connection too.
Yep.
If you've not seen Ronin.
There was a whole there was a whole genre of like Steve McQueen car racing films or whatever that might have. I mean, that might
Italian Job. Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. I mean, like I just think of Bullet because I still think of that as like one of the paragons of that genre, which is the cars racing around after each other, doing cool car stuff.
But this movie, it feels like it goes on forever too. Like it's a good like 15-minute chunk of the movie.
It goes on for forever, but doesn't feel like it's going on.
Yeah,
forever, which is the key to like a good chase scene, right?
Keeps you on edge.
But yeah, like the guy like, hey, let me just borrow your car real quick, and the guy's like, wait, what? And then suddenly he's like hauling ass. He's up on the sidewalk, and this this guy's like, this motherfucker, like he's like I'm not getting that car back. And this gradually gets more and more thrashed, like every like step of the way until it's like basically.
There's also there's the guy he's holding up the train, right? Like it's interspersed with the train. That's why I think it doesn't take that long. You're watching him race his car to try to catch up with the train, and then you're watching the train get held up.
And this guy's like gradually digging himself a hole, as he like shoots like first like the one like Bart cop was not it's not Bart whatever they call it on the subway, right? Like the transportation like officer, and then like goes over. I'll just have this guy skip this next stop, right? Like because that's a thing that they can do. Which, by the way, they literally can't now in the computerized system. So back then, you actually could. And then you see like and it's notable too that like when he gets confronted, there's like a guy that's like looks like a cop, but there's also.
I would assume an MTA. I would assume that guy's like an
MTA. Yeah, exactly. I was trying to think of what the acronym was. But then there's also sort of like the.
It's PIG.
Well, but it's not just cops though. That's the thing is it's also what are the Guardian Angels? You know what I'm talking about? It's like there's a couple like dudes that are just
Angels.
they're just backing him up. They're like, hey, we're here for whatever that's happening. We're here to like back you up on this. And it was just kind of funny. I thought that was definitely indicative of that early 70s time because that disappeared, obviously. But
yeah, maybe it wasn't. It's something like that. It's like the Guardian something.
I don't remember. First of all, I wasn't alive. Secondly, I don't remember.
Well, the modern equivalent of that, though, the guy just ran for mayor in New York City against Eric Adams and tried to do I'll be tougher on crime than a literal cop.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We all wept for you when we thought of you, which was not often.
But yeah, like the whole thing with this is that the two things are intercut together. I like the line that the guy has that he's like, "Hey, buddy, you're not going to get away with this," and then he just like shoots him dead because it's like there's different kinds of things, right? Because people were just holding up trains at that point, like for money or whatever, and yeah, you probably weren't going to get away with that. But like, this is a different thing. This is like its own, guy running through the city trying to assassinate the cop that's trying to like end their heroin fucking ring. Like that's a whole nother level of like crime. Than like the assumption that this guy just kind of wanted something from the train conductor or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so then he just gets shot right through, and that's another moment. Cutting from there right back into the car chase again, I think, is what makes it feel like it's not a very long car chase.
No, and it's such a edge of your seat scene too. Just like too late. Like you had people's like real reactions. It felt like. I'm assuming those were
like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Get out of the way.
Yeah. And it wasn't like staged or anything. It was like it was a lot more believable. Like probably because those were actual like people on the train, not realizing that their bus was gonna get their stop was gonna get skipped.
Yeah. Yeah, how's that gonna be if you're like late for work or something? You're like, what is going on exactly? Like what's happening?
There was a crazy Frenchman on the train. He just kept
See, apparently had a gun of some kind. I don't know. It was wild.
It's fascinating.
And that's why I was late for dinner.
It's the guy that runs the connection or whatever is like a famous film television star, and in real life was like a famous French TV star. And there's like that kind of interesting line where they're getting you to kind of understand that that's who it is, because there wasn't any subtitles available for like the French parts of it when I watched it. So I like literally for half
really?
Yeah.
I had French subtitles.
I had French subtitles too.
Really? I watched it on YouTube and they didn't have any French. So then I switched over to Amazon.
Probably your problem.
Amazon also didn't have the...
I thought now that we're monetized, you can afford to... no, never mind.
We've made 20 cents so far.
That's the joke. By the way, isn't it? There's a French Connection too, apparently, which I
with
watch.
Which I was trying to watch before we did this episode and couldn't because of my lovely basement.
I thought because it was bad.
No,
that never stops.
John Frankenheimer directed it. He's fantastic.
Seconds is amazing. I would love to cover Seconds at some point. That's a great film, Frankenheimer.
Yeah,
the second one has an 84% apparently.
Yeah, no, it's not as good as it's like I was talking to the producer of the guy who did the Pixies and Dinosaur Jr.'s latest albums, and we were about to see a performance of one of the guys from television, and I was raving about how much I love Marquee Moon, and he's like, "Well, what do you think of Action Adventure?" And I'm like, "It's not Marquee Moon." Like it's a great album.
It's
just,
fine.
It's not
that was the only thing you knew from
and that's-
television. You'd be like, that's a fine record. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, and
That's no fucking Marky Moon. Yeah,
and basically that's what people's opinion of French Connection 2 is like, yeah, it's just not as good as French Connection.
Literally, the first review on Letterboxd, not as good as the first.
Well,
but like that's not saying it's a bad movie on its own.
In the second one, it seems like he travels to. He's still trying to hunt him down, and he travels to Marseille.
Yeah, well, he didn't eat his spinach, so he couldn't take down the really. Nobody went to jail.
I was waiting for it. I was like,
Dun, 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 dun.
time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Heroin. No, spinach is heroin is Popeye Doyle's spinach.
Don't. Okay, here's
thought it was
don't do
Go-Go
it, guys.
No, so he injects. He tries heroin. He injects it, and he's like, da-da-da-dun-da-da, and then he just chases him down on the subway. He's like, why didn't I try this sooner? He definitely has to try it.
And like rip the car in half.
There's a weird part of this movie where they're in his apartment and like the girl, like I don't really get what they were trying to say with this. Like he's in his apartment and the girl's there and it looks like the girl that is working for Sal or whatever, like Sal's wife or whatever. It looks like her.
No, but you see her riding on the bicycle earlier, and then they zoomed in on her freaking go-go boots.
I mean, to be fair, they're good boots.
Yeah, and like they kept. If you notice, like earlier in the film, a woman walks by, she's wearing go-go boots, and he's like, "Hey, honey, nice boots." So it's like this weird obsession Popeye Doyle has with go-go boots.
The French Connection was actually backed by Big Boot. Thank you.
Yeah, well,
Nancy Sinatra?
It's a movie
that Italy. Yeah, thank you. That's
a lot of bootlicking going on. You know what I mean?
the big boop in Italy. Connect the dots, people.
This is also like the 70s is obviously like the high time for, and I'm listening to, I know everyone's going to groan when I say this. I'm listening to the Rick Perlstein book about Goldwater right now. And like the 60s was this big time with, it was kind of the first of these crime waves that were like tabloidized or whatever by the far right to they're writing about them every day. They're covering them live. They're like, oh, another murder, another rape, another shooting. So this very much plays into that whole culture of like obsession with, at all costs policing, really.
Yeah, I mean it's right at that time. I guess we should probably mention the super chats, right? So there's a shout out to Robert Mitchum, the man in Yakuza. That's great. Also, Robert Mitchum fans should probably check out our Night of the Hunter episodes because that's one of my favorite Robert Mitchum movies of all time. I
still have lean in.
It's catchy. It's catchy tune, man.
Perpetually stuck in my head, and every few days I'll get the Robert Mitchum lean in. I think it's usually when I'm looking through photos on my computer because I still have the photo of Robert Mitchum with the love and hate. So
yeah.
Not when you're watching MSNBC, they're saying lean in.
There you go.
Lean in. Hello, I'm Rachel Maddow, and you need to be aware of this man who's
Russia. You need to be aware of Russia and how everything relates to it.
Russian.
Shout out to the Brian, another super chat. Shout out to the Brian Eno television demos. Word, those are good as well. Also, yes, Serpico was happening around that time. Serpico's great. That's a great film. Underrated amongst that pantheon.
Yes, and also Death Wish came out right around this time too.
Overrated in that pantheon, but still good.
Absolutely. But yes, it is still good. The sequel's terrible. But you got part 3. Part 3 is like the peak of the Death Wish movies. It's not good.
No, but it's definitely it's yeah. Look, we're not here to talk about Death Wish. We're here to talk about the French Connection.
We're here to talk about cops or something. Bad boys. What you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
No, we're not talking about Will Smith. We're talking about Kamala Harris.
But yeah, it's the Vice Cops era where like we were alerted to the existence of like these narcotics units and stuff who had been in operation like even the 1920s. There's like
a lot of them were narcs and
like
going undercover.
Did you say narcissists?
No, I said narcs.
Yes.
I think narcissist is my new favorite derogatory term. though.
Oh God, there we go.
Are those leftists that are also cops?
Marxist, Leninist.
It's you know exactly what it is the second you see it, right? I mean, that's why it's a great nickname.
Leftists that called the police on their comrades.
There
are
we go.
Marxist Leninists.
You're welcome. I created a new term, and I didn't really. It was Conan because he thought I said something else, but now we're going with it.
That's like a classic my dad thing, like because he'll hear things wrong, but he'll hear them as funnier than they are. So yeah, apparently
That happens to me all the time because I'm half deaf. My friends from college are still laughing about whenever I thought somebody asked if there were barbarians at the hardware store.
Why were they only?
There you go.
I'm not going to make.
No,
I'm not going to make the
Anyway.
joke. I'm not going to make the joke about the barbarians at the hardware store that shared a name with the code. I'm not going to do it. Not going to
Don't
do
do
it.
it. Don't do it.
I'm not
I'll
gonna-
walk right off this show.
Should I do it? Should I say it? I'm not going to. Should I say it?
I'm not gonna. Should I say it? Should I say it? Serpico is probably the best of like the Vice movies, as far as I'm concerned. As far as like what a Vice Squad actually is, it's not the least of which is because it was like a major internal affairs case and like front page story about actual Vice cops. But it was definitely there was a time where it was like very much in fashion to make movies about that type of beat, that type of cop, and that type of beat, and who ended up being on those squads, which were honestly kind of degens usually, right? Like, and they're portrayed by these like handsome actors who are they present themselves well, but they're degens. That's who ends up on Vice, especially in the 70s.
Yeah,
What
I
was
mean,
it?
it kind of makes it interesting that Donnie Brasco, right, is another movie that I like a lot.
I was just about to say Donnie Brasco too.
Al Pacino ends up playing the opposite of that role, being like the a little bit too honorable mob guy. Who actually takes the code of the mob seriously. He's the one guy.
Was a Marxist.
I know how to shave that mustache too. He was like, "You're like a narc."
Like in every mob movie, right? They're like no one takes no one's honorable anymore. No one takes this stuff seriously, and then they're scumbags. Al Pacino and Donnie Brasco is the one cop. Or the one, he's the one mafia guy that actually is serious about like
he believes the code of honor, even though everyone else kind of treats it like a joke, right? And treats him like a joke, frankly. Yeah.
And also, too, you kind of see Donnie going through like adapting some of the toxic traits of a mobster, like the violence and whatnot. So, I mean, there was a specific genre of that time, for sure, about like the corrupted, like undercover cop.
Yeah.
Which is not like a trope in and of itself at this point, right?
Yeah.
But, that is true. That is true, Schulte. That is indeed. I watched that recently, and that was like, that's interesting. Like I was like, kind of like above his weight class. I don't know necessarily, but like anyway.
There's this
great movie.
I was
Underrated.
I was listening to TrueAnon this week, and they were covering this
shocking.
story called Spy Cop. Like there's this Spy Cop story that they broke in the UK, which is that all of these undercover, pretty much any leftist group, any environmentalist group, like all of these groups got infiltrated by undercover cops, and it turns out that like they were having like those serious like some of those seriously funny situations where they'd have like Maoist groups and everybody in it is a cop, and there would be like a breakaway cop Maoist group and stuff. But yeah,
the Narcissist that's in the group.
Yeah, exactly. It's the token Narcissist. And what's funny is like if you worked out how many people were plants versus how many people were like legitimate believers too, it would be pretty funny too.
Yeah.
By funny I mean sad. Thank you.
It's like we went undercover on this like youth environmentalist group, and all we got was like these bags that say clean the environment or whatever, and I'm like,
all we did is arrest each other for 2 hours. As it turns out. It was just like a Mobius loop of arresting each other.
It's like the two Spider-Men, pointing at each other.
Right, exactly.
Some of these cops expect like, all this horrible shit goes down, and then they're like, really? They like sing and they read theory and they plan like mutual aid? Like, what in the world? And I'm like,
preposterous. It's preposterous. This is very much a dudes rock movie. Man, this is like the most dudes rock movie I think that I can think of that we've covered in the crossover at least.
Yes,
I think it's more dudes rock than Gene Hackman.
Yeah,
well,
Gene
and also
Hackman
like
is killing it too. Like
yeah,
just he plays this racist scumbag who is charming AF. I mean, just like it oozes out of him. Like he's saying the N-word and you still like him. Like how does this work?
Yeah, he's like a brutish, womanizing, racist, incompetent, violent, corrupt asshole, and you're still like, but
Alcoholic?
he's all right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Oh, I forgot
like,
alcoholic. Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
I gotta be honest with it. Like Andy does make an excellent point because I watched a miniseries on Netflix called Clark about Swedish gangster Clark Olofsson, who's responsible for the term Stockholm syndrome. He was played by Bill Skarsgård.
Oh yeah,
Eh,
yeah. You're talking about this. I remember. Yeah.
Highly recommend it. Find on Netflix. Watch it with the English subtitles and like in Swedish because in my opinion, it's just better that way. But like
Usually
he
is.
was a charming psychopath, very self-centered. He used women for sex. He used men to help him with his schemes. I mean, in a way, he's kind of responsible for what happened at Normal Stork, the bank where the hostages were taken and whatnot. But so it's like, some men portray these characters as like crazy or stupid, but they're so charming and like you just can't help but fall in love with them and whatnot. And it's like the same with, with the French Connection.
Well,
Well,
young Gene
yeah, I
Hackman
mean-
wasn't like hard to look at. I mean, his hairline went away pretty quickly, but we talked about this
Yes.
in the conversation with Francesca, right? That like, which the movie, The Conversation, not a show called The Conversation with Francesca, which I would watch and or be on and or co-host. FYI,
Yes.
Francesca, call me. But the whole thing is that like, even as he'd barely get away as a character actor today. But Gene
Yeah.
Hackman, for all his kind of like, kind of weird lookingness and whatever, not like an ugly dude, but like not of what we think of as a traditional leading man either. But he
Right.
has like just enough of that like charm and suit spot to sort of like, again, let it all work. That like he's not a good dude at all, but you're still kind of like, whatever, he's fine.
Yeah, when I was watching Clark, I found myself rooting for him. I'm like, yeah, let him, use these women and use his friends to get. He's so charming, though. I would have fallen for him.
I mean, Quick and the Dead, Gene Hackman's playing the one of the most reprehensible characters in that film of reprehensible characters, and he's still charming. That's what's great about Gene Hackman is like he just The Firm, it's not a good movie, but Gene Hackman's incredible. Runaway Journey, great Gene Hackman scumbag character, and everything I've even the scummiest he's ever he gets the more likable he seems to be, which is weird.
What would
Yeah.
be the scum scale? What would be the scale of scummy?
It goes beyond the bad boy myth too, to be honest, because there's a specific archetype for like what is considered like a bad boy, but there's like the charming criminal, the charming psychopath or
Yeah, like the Ted
whatnot.
Bundy, right? Like,
So hold on. I would call it the bad lieutenant scale, right? Because it's like on one hand you've got like Captain America, and one hand you got not just bad lieutenant. We'll say Harvey Keitel was like one over. He's like the chaotic neutral.
Yes,
but
I love
like-
the bad lieutenant.
the Nicolas Cage bad lieutenant. where do you think Gene Hackman would be on on the bad lieutenant scale?
Ooh,
I think he's
good
somewhere around somewhere like true neutral, maybe. I guess
Yeah.
using D&D.
Yeah,
terms.
yeah, because he
course,
hasn't
he said.
quite gotten like he's not at the bottom of his bottom of like where he can fall in the Bad Lieutenant, that's about
Yeah,
somebody
that's clearly on the chaotic scale. That's way
that's
over
somebody
on the
like
right.
Popeye Doyle having a really, really bad run of luck.
Yeah.
I think the bad lieutenant scale is a good thing that we should keep that around for future bits because
Absolutely.
Have we
Absolutely.
ever covered the bad
I
lieutenant?
feel like we haven't. I feel like the conversation in this movie go really well together because like Gene Hackman's kind of, he's not exactly
way
a-
different performances, but really good performances both. But very different kinds of performances.
He would be feeding himself. He would be feeding himself in this movie the information.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
So I think this is we've covered both on This Is Revolution too.
Can we just talk about? And I don't mean to completely dominate the conversation, especially with the bad lieutenant scale, which I think is genius. But the end, like he just kind of casually, cavalierly, accidentally shoots his comrade, and like whatever, it's like, oh hey, it's what's his nuts? It's like it's so and so, and he's like whatever, I'm gonna get him. Like and then it just sort of ends.
And the
Like-
other guy, his partner's kind of shocked by it too. He's like, "You killed a
Yeah,
cop."
he's.
What are
and
you
he's
gonna
like,
do?
I was trying to get him. I was like, well, no, you killed like your colleague. And then it ends like 2 minutes afterwards, and it's the bleakest ending because ultimately like the bad guy gets away.
Mm-hmm.
And then it sees that like what is he like? I forget, like he gets put on administrative leave. The actual cop.
Yeah, they actually they get taken off of Vice there.
Yeah, he gets transferred out of Vice and moved to like somewhere else. But like he straight up was like, "Oh, there he is!" Bam! I was like, "No, that was a different guy you shot.
That's the guy
You
you've been,
shot
like,
a
beefing
different
with the
dude."
entire- but it's also the guy he's been beefing with the entire fucking movie. So you have
Exactly.
to say,
because it's not the first cop he shot.
No, it's like, again, on the bad lieutenant scale, I don't think most of it is intentional, but like I kind of re-examined it a little bit. Where it was like, no, he's an agent of chaos right now. Because first of all, as I mentioned earlier, I can't stress this enough for people that are interested or have seen this movie. He is incredibly bad at his job. He's a little bit lucky now and again, and he doesn't have the worst instincts when he like finds a thing, but he keeps saying over and over again, "Oh, it's going to be this, it's going to be," and it's not that. It's something else entirely.
yeah, he's like, "I've got a hunch."
People's
Like,
whatever.
like, even the characters in the movie are pointing out, like, "Dude, your hunches never turn out to be accurate.
Yeah, you suck at this. Stop doing hunches. It's bad. It's not for you.
He's not like Domino in the X-Men. Like, he doesn't have like the power of luck. I mean, things generally are not going to work out for him.
Yeah.
He just doesn't.
Well,
give a
it's-
fuck. And
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's wrong all the time. He's still a cop. He's like a semi-popular vice cop. Like
Yeah,
it just
if he hits on enough women with go-go boots, eventually one of them is going to go home with him.
it's,
and
it's
if
the
he-
law of averages. If you do,
You know,
you ask
that's
them all.
what it seems like. Is
Go-go.
you shoot enough people, eventually you're going to hit the bad guy. Might kill a few cops, but whatever.
Might kill some innocent people. You never know. You never know. Just keep trying.
A lot
I
of
have
people
to wonder if there would have been the same consequences if the guy he killed wasn't a Fed. Like the guy he kills is above his pay grade by a lot. Like they have
exactly.
the FBI working with him, and he's like, "Dude, I saw him kill the last cop, like or get the last cop killed, and now he's gonna do it again." And then he's like,
with no apparent repercussions whatsoever. Like just like no repercussions.
Things never change, do they?
Yeah, I was gonna say, which is not that much different.
There's a 3-strike policy for cop killing. Like he probably ends up killing another cop.
You
and
can
they're
kill
like, okay,
3 fellow cops, and then you get an official reprimand. It goes in your permanent record.
You get paid leave,
Yeah.
Exactly.
or you get moved to a different precinct or whatever.
Yeah, you kill 3 cops, we transfer you out of Vice. You don't get taken off the force.
It's like
You don't
Captain
get to-
Kirk.
You get transferred to a lesser department. Exactly.
Like the
Amazing.
Captain Kirk.
70s were pretty great if you're a white dude.
Well, a cop too. Like
It's not that bad right now either.
Again, things haven't really
exactly.
changed. The more things
Yeah.
change, the more things stay the same.
But
oh,
yeah.
go ahead. Yeah.
no, you go ahead.
I think we're kind of going for the same place, kind of get a little bit back on track. So the heroin smuggling, again, is, first of all, I just want to point out something I noticed on this rewatch, the absurdity of like, so there's one guy that's like the lookout when they go to like transfer the heroin out and like put the money in. And then there's just like what seems like 30 dudes dressed up like they're going to a mobster themed party, just hanging out in a junkyard by an abandoned warehouse. Just all like standing around lamping. And like, it struck me as deeply hilarious that like, obviously there was no foot traffic around there. It's be like, hey, are they auditioning for the Sopranos over here? Like what's happening? I thought that was very funny. And then also I forgot that the classic meme of like somebody hands something to like an expert in a movie, and then they like do some inscrutable thing that like the average audience member has no idea what they're doing, and they just look and they go, "That's from this. That's from the French Connection." Because he like the expert, he puts the heroin and like he does some chemicals on it, like whatever, it does a thing, and like he just goes and just nods his head like we're satisfied. Yeah, it's good. And like that comes from this because it's been homaged so many times that I forgot that it comes from this. Like when it doesn't matter if it's drugs or whatever.
Too. He's like a lab guy and like it's like a weird nerdy lab guy.
He's just
That's
there.
like Tom Mulaney. And
he's the only dude that doesn't look like he's stepped off the set of The Godfather. Yeah, exactly.
And then he goes. No, he literally goes. he has the thing, and then he's literally like, "Oh, take a bag," and then he reaches for the big bag, and he's like, "Oh no, not that bag, take the smaller bag," and then
Yeah,
he's paying him heroin to fucking.
It's so hilarious. Like he's as the expert. It's like the expert giving the approving nod meme is like built comes from here. Anyway, go ahead, Christina. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, we've moved past ways to smuggle in drugs, and the human anatomy is one of those places.
Yeah,
Keister,
especially at festivals.
Yes. Yoo-hoo!
I don't know.
Real Don never wears shorts. You're right, Sid. That might have literally happened on The Shield. Great series, by the way. Love The Shield. Yeah. So I just and like I think that again the hiding the chassis of the car seems goofy now, but this is 1971, right? And just to reiterate that point, I think that like that's a trope that again like hiding the merch in like the base cab. Like you can do it once, and then like after that, it's just like an homage to it or whatever. But I think it works here, even though there's sort of like how did they get the car back together that quickly? I mean, you got to assume some time elapsed, right? But
that has to be a goof,
Yeah, and they're literally like, "Hey, my car," and they're like, "Why would you park it there?" And then they're like stalling for time so they can put the entire car back together.
Right. Hey, they just park your car anywhere you want back in Frogtown. Yeah, got him. Like where they're like kind of. It's like,
I park the car wherever I want. Nobody will steal it. It is France.
It is France. How do we feel about the Frenchman? I don't know.
I can't tell whether you're being funny or you just French.
No, but how do we feel about him as like I mean, obviously he doesn't do like tons and tons of soliloquies or anything along those lines. He kind of plays as like the strong silent type, and it must have been especially inscrutable for you, Forrest, if you saw without the subtitles. But
yeah, I didn't know what was going on.
Just like he's like outlining his like master plan, and Forrest like I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, sure.
The only phrase I know in French is "Voulez-vous coucher avec moi ce soir?" And that's it.
I guess he was in The Discreet Charm of the Bourgeoisie, which I did not know. He's been in some other Benel films. I didn't know that.
He had the je ne sais quoi.
Oh. I think so to answer my own question, I think it works. I think he works as a bad guy specifically because in 1971 America, especially, just the idea that there would be like something exotic coming over from France would be like, oh, of course there is. Like you wouldn't think about France any other way. Because new cinema, because the French new cinema would like think about like Godard and Agnes Varda and all of the like it was like, oh, this crazy stuff is all coming from France, and I think that that's something that with the crazy stuff, if you're like more of an institutionalist or from a regressive standpoint, that means drugs, people. So they were like, oh, they need to get heroin so they can make more of their crazy movies, like whatever.
And then in the 80s, all the bad guys were Russians.
Right. Well, for obvious reasons. I mean, that's agitprop, but that's a different show.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it really was a French heroin smuggler.
It was a big deal. No, well, to be clear, it's based on actual facts of drug smuggling for sure. But I think as a movie, one of the reasons why it worked is because there's this sort of like idea of like, corrupting influences coming from France, right? We weren't to the Freedom Fries level of it, but
I think I'm going to cut this part here, and then we'll jump to the after party, which is on the Movie Night Extravaganza channel. Thanks for tuning in to this week, and we'll be back on in a few minutes.
Exactly.